All right, everyone, welcome to the Ward 9 Meet the Candidates Forum. My name is Devin Hogan. I am chair of the Minneapolis DFL. I am also co-chair of the Ward 9 committee. I'm here with my fellow co-chair, Zainab Mohammed, and four of the candidates that are running for Minneapolis Ward 9. And so again, thank you for coming here tonight. I just wanted to do a quick introduction. We are towards the end of the caucus registration process. So if you're interested in running to be a delegate this year and supporting the endorsement process for Minneapolis DFL, this is your final call to go to caucus.dfl.org and fill out your registration form so you can get a ballot later in June to vote for endorsements. Remember to check yes to become a delegate. You need to check yes to be a delegate in order to vote for endorsement. So again, caucus.dfl.org. All right, thanks again, everyone. So tonight, what we're going to do is have all of the candidates are going to speak. We are going to do a 90-second introduction, followed by 7 questions. The candidates will each have 2 minutes to answer the question, and then a 90-second closing statement. So the same question will be asked of every candidate. Candidates are asked to not refer to other candidates in their speeches and to just to answer the question specifically. And so again, last call for signing up to caucus, but let's get right into it. I'd like to now introduce my fellow Ward 9 co-chair, Zainab Mohammed.
Oh, awesome. Thank you so much, Devin. And thank you all the candidates that are joining us today and everyone that's watching. I'm Zainab. It's nice to meet everybody. I'm a community member, an organizer, and an activist, and I will be helping Devin do co-hosting tonight. So our first question, we're going to do a 90 seconds. Every person will have 90 seconds. You'll do your opening statements. And the first question is, what intent and experience would you bring to the office? Every question will also be on the chat as well. And the first person that's going to be opening us this evening is Jason Chavez. So the question will be right now, sorry. What intent and experience would you bring to the office, Jason?
Yeah, thank you, Zainab. First and foremost, before I begin, I just want to thank everybody for hosting this tonight. My name is Jason Chavez Cruz. My pronouns are he, him, his, and I'm running to represent the ward that I was born and raised in. I'm the proud son of Mexican immigrant parents, an organizer, a policy worker, and a queer Latino. The experience that I would bring in is the experience of my own personal life of being born and raised in the East Phillips neighborhood in Ward 9, and the experience as me as an organizer and as a policy worker. I currently work at the Minnesota House of Representatives doing a lot of policy and legislative work to ensure that we can rebuild Lake Street and here in Ward 9. And I do a lot of organizing work in our communities, helping work alongside the Powderhorn residents here in Ward 9 that are about to be left homeless because we don't have that tenant opportunity to purchase. So I bring that along with me. But like I said, I was born and raised here. My family and I were homeless at a young age. We experienced the fear and pain of having ICE come into our neighborhoods and tearing us apart, and also know what it feels like to have soil contamination in our backyard. I am going to be using these experiences to take with me to City Hall to ensure that everybody in our community is housed, that environmental justice is at the forefront, and that we can actually take care of our Black, Brown, and Indigenous and immigrant communities here in Ward 9.
Awesome, thank you. And then Michael Moore, you're next.
Okay, well, everybody calls me Mickey. My name is Mickey Moore. I'm born in South Minneapolis. I've lived here my whole life. I'm a husband, a father, a homeowner, and a business leader. I'm the son of a single mom. I'm also the product of many of the city programs and services that helped nurture me as a child, including Big Brothers, Boy Scouts, Big Boys and Girls Club, YMCA, Pillsbury House, and so many others, Park and Rec, sports, and so forth. In 1996, I founded the Braid Factory, which began the natural hair care salon industry in Minneapolis. This year, the Braid Factory will celebrate its 25th anniversary as the area's most popular hair braiding establishment with more than 300,000 customers served. As a result, I have gainfully employed hundreds of people, and we've started an industry that currently has 45 or 50 natural hair care salons around the Twin Cities area, employing hundreds of people right now. In 2020, I was motivated by the tragic murder of George Floyd to run for United States Congress. And in doing so, I received more votes than any independent congressional candidate in the country. Since that time, I have spent the last year almost talking with and listening to Ninth Ward residents and business owners about the many concerns and issues facing our community. Our individual concerns are as diverse as we are as a neighborhood, but one common thread is that people don't feel represented. They don't feel heard by our city government. And we'll talk a lot about individual issues, but the biggest change that I'm going to bring to the Ninth Ward is going to be in the way that we represent the people. We are going to create a true partnership with the groups, the organizations, and the institutions, the residents and the business owners that make up the Ninth Ward.
Are you off, Mickey? We've reached time. Each person has 90 seconds. We gotta make.
I had a 2-minute introduction. My mistake.
No worries, you're good. We gotta keep going though. Carmen Means, you're next.
Absolutely. Thank you all. Thank you to the DFL team. Thank you to my fellow, I guess, running mates on one end. That is also an end. Thank you to everybody that's also watching here. My name is Carmen Means. I currently serve as the executive director of Central Neighborhood, as well as BNO. If you have been watching BNO, which stands for Bryan Neighborhood, you've been watching, you know, Central is where George Floyd was murdered at last year, May 25th, 2020. I have been connected to this community, to South Minneapolis, in the capacity of building community for over 20 years. So that lies my experience. I am not a politician. Neither do I promote to be one. As a matter of fact, I'm a faith leader. I'm an activist. I'm a freedom fighter. I'm a Black woman. I'm a Black mother, and as well as a community member. And so the question was, what intent and experience would I have to bring to this community? I am a bridge builder. I understand what grassroots looks like. I understand what it means to be on the sides of marginalized. I understand what it means and what it looks like to be part of an affordable housing or have sustainable housing. I grew up on Section 8. That is not a something that I wear lightly, but I know what that feels like. And so with that, I want to be able to bring my experience. I want to be able to bring my ability to get dirty with community. I've been on the front line since day one, and my fight did not start May 25th last year. Let me say that. I've always been on the front line fighting for marginalized, and so including myself. So when you fight for yourself as well as your people, you show up differently. So I bring experiences, I bring heartfelt, I bring fight, I bring a warrior to the table to be able to see change and healing happen in our community. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Carmen. And then Haji Yusuf, you're next. Haji? Can you hear me?
Now I can hear you. I'm sorry.
Okay, awesome. You're next.
Yes. First, I want to send out well wishes to Margarita Ortega. She was one of the candidates for Minneapolis Ward 9. We pray for you. Get better. We hope to see you again. Ward 9, you have been my home on and off for the last 22 years. My journey started at the Cupwoods here on Lake Street. Living across, I lived with 7 other roommates, and all I had in my pocket was just a Greyhound ticket. The same issues I faced 22 years ago are still present with us today. Access to equal opportunity, racial and ethnic disparities, rents being too high, public safety, and environmental justice. My neighbors, our city, our ward has been in the news lately, and seeing what's happening, it breaks my heart. We do need new leadership in the City Hall, and with your help, we can bring back Ward 9 to be a more safe, welcoming, and business-friendly community. Well, my name is officially Haji Yusuf. I'm Somali American, a husband, a father of 4. I have been a community activist for a long time, a small business owner, and a proud resident of Minneapolis. I bring all this mentioned experience to the City Council. I want to be able to deal with what is important to all of us collectively as a community. I bring my experience working for Minnesota Department of Revenue as an owner of a multilingual media company that represents all languages within Ward 9. My campaign is all about integrity, honesty, and in every interaction I have with all of you, I'm looking forward to representing everyone in Ward 9 fairly. Things I really want to fight and really stand out on is what future do we want to have when it comes to policing in our community and also our environments.
Sorry to cut you off, Haji, you're out of time. I apologize, but we do have to keep going. And you will all have closing statements, by the way. So Devin will be asking our first question of the night.
All right, thanks everyone for your introductions. The first question is, what is your vision for the 9th Ward? And how will you engage the immigrants and communities of color that live here if you are elected? The first person to answer that question is Mickey Moore. We cannot hear you, Mickey.
So thanks. That's a real personal question for me. When I started the Braid Factory, it was very much a part of an immigrant nonprofit organization a venture, in that we were looking for very specific economic opportunities for some of our hardest to employ communities. And since that time, we have really provided gainful opportunities for a lot of East African immigrant women over the last 25 years. They've gone on to own their own businesses, they've gone on to purchase homes, send their children to college, et cetera, et cetera. So bringing specific communities into the economic opportunity table fairly and equally is something that I have a decades-long experience in doing. And it's something that's critical for Ward 9 because we are such a diverse community. We do have so many different immigrants from so many different countries. And working together cooperatively and partnering with these different organizations and businesses is something that I would be highly prioritizing in terms of working that into our economic and business redevelopment program.
Excellent, thank you. The next person to answer the question is Carmen Means.
Awesome, and thank you again. Like Mickey, this question definitely identifies in me the vision for Ward 9. I believe that we constantly are put into this place that we are giving things and we're giving resources. We're told where to sit at the table once tables are created. We are checklists on many people's lists, as far as from downtown to sometime even local people that we serve within community. In Ward 9 right now is in probably the most fragile, but yet best places ever, because we are at a space that I believe that now we have never moved as collective as we are moving right now as a community. With that being said, we've been in a space of constant intervention. We have been pimped in many ways. I hate to use that terminology, but I'm just being honest with you. We've been exploited in many ways. And what I'm talking about is the exploitation of what it looks like and how much money has been made off the back, sweat, and tears of the impoverished. Poverty is a billion-dollar industry that we've paid dearly for. And so with that being said, the vision for Ward 9 is not just to, we're getting from a place of begging for what's ours. What we've seen out of the uprise was a community rise up and become their own solution. We've seen mutual aid spark up from formal places as well as grassroots. We've seen neighbors helping each other. We've seen folks that did not know that things existed in their community stepping off of their porches to go meet and greet each other. We've seen that, so we know that it is in us. Right now, what we have to continue to see is be able to build resources and build and invest in our own communities, hold people accountable. So we are at a place that we definitely have to do some intervention. But I believe the true work comes is when we're able to create the prevention work. The prevention work is not the sexy work. It's not profitable. It is anti-capitalist, which is what we need. We have to begin to look at this space for what it is and begin to build a community that's moving towards wholeness. Quit settling for spaces. They put the Band-Aid on. They're giving us crumbs when we can have loaves. And the brilliance in our community rests. Where the brilliant rest is where the healing has to rest as we move forward. As we move forward also with the other piece of immigrants and people of color.
Carmen, but we're at 2 minutes. So
awesome.
Thank you for your answer. All right. Next up, we have Jason Chavez.
Yeah, so I just want to thank you for this question. It really means a lot to me specifically. Like I said, I'm the proud son of Mexican immigrant parents who came from Mexico to the United States in search of a better life, escaping violence and poverty. Ward 9 is home to a big Latinx, East African, Black, and Indigenous community with a big undocumented community as well in Minnesota. I want to mention that because that's really important for me to talk about. Everyone here deserves the right to live a good life. Everyone here deserves to be able to have a minimum wage that actually helps them. Everyone here deserves to have housing that is just, that they can actually afford and live righteously here. Whether you're the undocumented mother that has to work 3 jobs, the hardworking storekeeper that works so much for their family, or the dedicated community member here that is making sure everyone is connected, everyone has the right to live a good life in Ward 9. I want to make sure we have a place where we have safe drinking water, clean air, and an environment that is taking care of our community members. Ward 9 has big pollutants in our neighborhood that have increasing asthma rates and increasing and alarming cancer rates, and we need to make sure that we stop that as soon as we can. And in general, I just want to make sure that we are taking care of our Black, Brown, and Indigenous and immigrant communities here in Ward 9. And that starts by making sure we take care of our DACA immigrants through immigrant policies here by passing a DACA fund and making sure we're actually taking care of our community members through a Renters' Bill of Rights to ensure we house everybody here.
Thank you. And our final answer to this question is from Yusuf Haji.
Thank you very much again for that opportunity. I, like myself again, I am a recent immigrant. I've seen Lake Street, and this part of Ward 9 of Lake Streets, and all the way down to 38 and Chicago, has been a hub. But as you know, COVID-19 has really devastated some of these immigrant, Black and Brown owned businesses on Lake Street. It has disproportionately impacted. This pandemic has really affected day-to-day businesses. For one, I think it's time to help them get back on their feet. These businesses tend to hire fellow Black and Brown members in our community. This can lead to economic growth in our community. It circulates the dollar spent within our ward and in Minneapolis as well. As you all know, the COVID has really impacted many of these businesses, forcing some of them to lay off some of the employees. I am committed to discovering ways to ensure our beloved businesses, from shops to restaurants owned by immigrants, Black and Brown communities, have what they need to weather this storm. To ensure their survival, we must pursue economic development grants, no interest loan support, and a commercial eviction moratorium during the COVID-19 pandemic. Also, we must increase access to Paycheck Protection Program loans and fund technical business liaison to support established and emerging business. I'm committed to pushing for policies that allow businesses greater access to billions of dollars and that are in contract and executed by City of Minneapolis. I will introduce an employee retention grant so small business won't have to lay off anyone. This is a very important and is part of our plan to make sure that the City of Minneapolis works for everyone, regardless of their background, where they come from, who they are. They should be able to make this place, and we need to collectively be able to help them get where they want to get and moving forward and making Ward 9 and our residents and our community important to all of us. This is what we need to lead on.
All right. Thank you very much. And then on to Zainab to ask the next question.
Awesome. Thank you all so much for answering that question. Our next question is also going to be posted on the board. The first person that's going to answer is Carmen Means. And the question is, Ward 9 has the largest small businesses by BIPOC and communities of color. What will you do if elected to City Hall to rebuild Lake Street and small businesses across the board?
Absolutely. And so that is such an honor, number one, to be in a space where we can say that we have the largest businesses for people of color. And so with the rebuilding, though, I do believe that there has been intentionally loopholes put in place as far as resources is concerned. And so with that as well, when we like to use words like BIPOC and we like to use words like diversity, we need to be clear about what is not, what groups that are not properly represented at this table, what groups that are not properly in places of small businesses, because we know that small businesses is one of the many ways, one of the impactful ways to break generational poverty. So along with what my brother Jason and others on here has talked about with our immigrant community that we have, we still, although we do, and we can say with proudness that we have a large population, there is still a lot of underserved population that is not yet given the opportunity or cannot have the opportunity to be able to own businesses and be able to break this generational poverty that we know that is a big, massive thing, not even thing, but devastation within our community. So building up Lake Street, number one, looks like holding people accountable, starting at the governmental stance, not giving consistently loans. Loans are not working. Loans means giving back. Right now, there has been an uprise. There's been devastation to communities. There need to be resources that need to be forgiven after a certain amount of time. We're not talking about something that was self-inflicted. We're talking about as being the sacrifice in many cases as a result of white supremacy that brought us to this place. The resources are endless. We know it because they spent over $8 million on the Chauvin case. So what would it look like if these businesses had access to that in this space to be able to build up their business, to be able to grow marketing, to be able to grow visibility within their community? And how can we be able to bridging new opportunities for people that are yet not represented on Lake Street?
Awesome. Thank you so much, Carmen. And Jason Chavez, you're up next.
Thank you for that question. That's one critical. We know that small businesses here in Ward 9 are the backbone of our ward and sustain our economy that move us forward. And specifically, these small businesses here are the ones that raised me, the ones that fed me, ones that allowed my family and I to survive here in Ward 9. I want to talk a little about the work that I'm doing right now, and then the work that I'm going to do in the future to ensure that we rebuild Lake Street and rebuild Ward 9 and making sure we're taking care of not just Lake Street, but all the small businesses in Ward 9, because that is really critical to move forward. I'm working on the Promise Act right now, helping lead those efforts for the state that would rebuild Lake Street, West Broadway, and University Avenue, because it's not just a Ward 9 issue, it's an entire city issue. It would bring back $267 million for rebuilding efforts, prioritizing small businesses that have been lost and disappearing from our ward, and ensuring that they can build back better, because that should be the number one priority. I right now have a lot of support from small businesses because I've been working with them on finding a new system of public safety, but also making sure how we can all work together to move forward. And that's something I will always cherish and take with me once we get to City Hall, so we can make sure that these partners are people that we can count on. For example, for the Promise Act, I've been working with the Latino Economic Development Center, MEDA, and a lot of Black small business owners to ensure that this can become a reality. But what are we going to do? What is critical is making sure that we get that funding from the state, and that as a council member, I will make sure that that money is being used the right way, and making sure that we actually lobby the federal government, because right now they have money that the city council can actually use, and we need to make sure that we bring that money into our ward to ensure that we don't lose our ward to gentrification, because that will happen if we don't take action. And then some other stuff that I think is really critical for Ward 9 is making sure we're fighting for community ownership of our small business owners. Right now, a lot of the same people on Lake Street own the same buildings, and they're losing a lot of our small business owners are losing a lot of money because of that. And in order to move forward, we need that. So, and a rent relief program, but we'll talk about that later.
Your time's up, Jason. Haji Yusuf, you're next.
Thank you very much for that, Zainab. Can you please repeat the question for me one more time?
Yeah, absolutely. Ward 9 has the largest small businesses owned by BIPOC communities and BIPOC communities of color. What will you do if elected to City Hall to rebuild Lake Street and small businesses?
First of all, we must rebuild Lake Street. This is a very, very important place for Ward 9, especially where our ward is. 2, small businesses are integral to the health of our local and national economy and the quality of life of residents of Ward 9. The small business of our multicultural community creates the cornerstone of our local economy. That's why I want to fight so hard for them to receive the proper recognition and assistance they need to thrive and grow. I've got so many endorsements from local small businesses here on Lake Street. I have visited them. I have talked to them. I have asked them of their concerns and issues that they want to be helped with, and also what is the future for them in regards to owning and keeping their business right here in Ward 9 and in Lake Street. We can make Lake Street a place where that attracts everyone, even from out of state, a place that everyone can look up to and say, I want to go shopping in Lake Street. I want to go buy sambusa in Lake Street. I want to go to the best Mexican, Latino restaurants on Lake Street. I want to go to important immigrants, communities that are building, have come here with nothing, zero. Then are building economy from zero, and they are what they are. This is the fight I want to be in with them. This is very important. So what I'm going to do, first, I want to fight. A lot of the businesses that I have spoken with, I've asked, some of them shy away from loans that are based on interest. So they have asked me what I will do. I said, I'm going to fight for no interest loan for minority-owned businesses in Ward 9. I'm going to have quick, improved access to quick funding. I will reductions.
Your time is up. You do have a closing statement though, so you can include all of that. And then Devin's going to be asking our next question.
We still have Mickey to answer for this question.
Devin, I really
Mickey,
appreciate
you're up
that.
next. I'm so sorry, Mickey. I
It's
apologize.
okay. It's no problem. Listen, this is something I've basically already started working on. Just recently, our businesses at 38th and Chicago were greenlit for a special loan program, and I've been working with those businesses that are in our Ward 9 to make sure that they've got their applications filled out properly and that they're requesting the funds that they have coming. There's also a small business administration program to target restaurants, specifically minority, immigrant, and women-owned restaurants along Lake Street and within the 9th Ward. And their application opens on May 3rd. And so I'm already working with those businesses to make sure that they're prepared and ready. We've got people in the banking industry that are prepared to volunteer to help them to fill out the forms and so forth that some business owners have trouble with. But the city really needs to properly partner with our state, county, and federal agencies and lawmakers to request, to work for, and to access funding and programs that are designed to assist distressed properties and businesses. And then furthermore, to act as active liaisons. That's the portion that we're really missing. City, government, elected officials need to work for the local interests to help them access and take advantage of these various options and opportunities. The city needs to work harder to find and partner with existing private sector and nonprofit organizations who have a focused mission aimed at economic equality. There are banks and financial institutions who have already shown a willingness to put together a program of business loans or some specific assistance packages accessible by targeted demographic groups, women, minorities, immigrants, income-affected individuals. As a city, we need to become more willing participants in the achievement of economic goals for all of our residents, not just the football team owners and not just the Fortune 500 companies, but those of us that are down here on the ground level that are really making a difference in our community and our neighborhood.
Awesome. Thank you, Devin.
All right, thanks everyone. Our third question is public safety. The question is, how do you plan to address the rise in crime in Minneapolis? What specifically would you advocate for as either alternatives or supplements to the Minneapolis Police Department, if any, and why? And the first person to answer this question is Jason.
Thank you for that question, Devin. Right now, I think we need to figure out what the root cause of violence is. We need to also acknowledge that the 9th Ward has big economic disparities. And the reason for that is because it's home to a lot of Black, Brown, and Indigenous people here in the 9th Ward. And we need to first fix that in order to help solve crime in our neighborhood. We know for a fact that when communities are funded, when communities are invested in, that crime goes down. And in order for that to happen in the 9th Ward, we need to invest in our community and make sure that we are actually looking out for everybody here in the 9th Ward. I want to mention a quote from one of my mentors that still sticks to me to this day. He told me once, and always tells me actually, a good way to help solve violence in a community, in a neighborhood, is to give somebody a $60,000 union paying job. And that is really important to me because it will help a lot of the issues that we have in the 9th Ward and quite frankly, in the entire city. There's some things that we can do right now. We can ensure that we pass the Renters' Bill of Rights. We can pass the minimum wage that actually takes care of everybody here in Minneapolis. And we need to make sure we're doing violence prevention methods and having mental health responders for a lot of the situations that we're dealing with right now. And I talk about this a lot because when I mentioned that in order to help our communities, we need that $60,000 paying job, is because we can base it off on all these things as well. We know right now that the Minneapolis Police Department cannot be reformed, it cannot be repaired, and we need something completely different. It means that we create and pass this new Department of Public Safety that's going to give the power back to the people living in Minneapolis, to allow them to work with the city council to develop what public safety can actually look like and how we can reclaim that to make sure that our communities are really, really safe here in Minneapolis. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you. The next person to answer the question is Haji.
Yes, thank you very much. So that's a two-part question, am I right? So the first one being the rise in crime, and the second one is?
What specifically would you advocate for is either alternatives or supplements to the Minneapolis Police Department, and why?
All right. I'm just going to cover everything that I have here. First of all, I want to start with a little bit of background, because it seems like we're not leading with empathy, and we are leading with things that I'm trying to wrap my head around. Really, it looks like a lot of us are indifferent, and there's an important issue here. Everything here is tied to how we go about making sure all of our community feel safe and secure. I am a big believer in saying this. The model of policing is broken, and we need a fresh start. We need a new look. This is not a joke. As a father of 4, I fear for my children's safety. Every day I worry about them when they go play basketball, or wherever they go watch a movie, or when they come back home. We as a parents of Black, Brown, and Indigenous community have this heavy bag on our back that we carry with us every day. So for me, for the time being, that is a problem. For the crime, much of the recent surge in crime in around Ward 9 can be attributed to the job losses and closures of community centers. The police department has abandoned Ward 9, basically. We are on us by ourselves. And this cannot be, because if they were keeping and making sure that our streets were safe before George Floyd, what's different now? Why are they not protecting our communities? This is very important as a community. And I really want to make sure that we see the reasons, and we know why, and we need to collectively deal with this issue as a community. This is not one group, one way or the other. This has to be a collective thing. So I want to take that leadership. I want to be able to sit there and say, let's hear everyone out. There's a lot of issue when it comes to this issue, and it's a very important issues. Community of Black and Brown are facing double-edged sword. 1, policing that is harming them. 2, crime that is increasing, that is affecting our small businesses. This is something that we can collectively deal with. And we must start thinking. If you look back, and each one of you, don't be indifferent. You must look back at the history of policing for this country.
Haji, I'm sorry, we are at 2 minutes. Thank you, though, for your response. The next person to answer the question is Mickey Moore.
Thanks, Devin. This is an important issue, and I want to be very clear. I have some very different opinions about what we need to do to solve this crisis. And there's really no question that the Minneapolis Police Department is in the middle of a crisis of culture, a crisis of procedure, a crisis of direction. Our city charter allows us up to 880 police officers. Today we have less than 600. So the rise in crime is very, very specifically attributable to the fact that police officers left this department in huge numbers just this past summer. It's imperative that we continue to work to meet the very real public safety needs of our city by bringing in the appropriate number of police officers needed for a city of our size. At the same time, it's important that we understand and work into our new policies that not every 911 call requires an armed officer to respond. In fact, that is very much a problem in our procedure. Police officers are handling non-emergency, non-criminal, non-violent calls, and that's taking away their opportunity to deal with real crime intervention and crime prevention, crime investigation, crime response. So we need to change and restructure the way our police department operates. And we're very lucky right now to have a chief of police who is from our city, who grew up, came up through the Minneapolis Police Department, understands the faults and failures of our system, and is very committed and dedicated to doing what it takes to reform and change our system, to improve our police department and give the people of the Ninth Ward and of the city of Minneapolis a police department that we can be proud of, that we can have faith in, that we can trust again, and that can provide a safety for us. And this is one of the reasons why I was endorsed by Operation Safety Now, is because we support the police.
Thank you. Thank you. And then finally, we have Carmen.
Thank you again. And so this policing and us thinking about safety in this whole new reimagining what safety looks like, let me first say that part of justice is safety and complete safety. We have to be able, once again, to acknowledge that we've spent an estimate of about $8 million with Operation Safety Net, as far as it pertains to what we knew that our police department and our safety department believed what we needed as a city in order to remain safe, so that there will not be another uprise. With that being said, we also have to acknowledge that policing does not stop crime. Once again, it does not stop, neither does it prevent crime. And so what I stand on is not adding more police. I do understand that the numbers are down now, but I do not stand on adding more police, neither do I stand on removing police. But I do stand on being able to acknowledge that according to the fire department, when I met with them, that 80% of police calls, when fire departments come in after the police call is made, they can't even enter in once the police arrive, that they are the ones in many cases that were adequate and that were equipped in order to take that call and meet that need. Proper investment, and we have to be able to acknowledge that we have yet to see the proper investment in our community as it relates to what feeling safe actually looks like. I believe the over-policing that we have experienced is because we have removed other options. We remove other investments. We remove other opportunities in order to be able to respond to mental health calls. Also, the criminalization of things such as people experiencing homelessness, things that we know that is heavy within our community as far as addictions is concerned. So we're not talking about something that is just a one fold or one lens thing. We're once again talking about Band-Aids put on gushing wounds. And so this is not to talk against. We have an excellent chief of police, but the system is not serving us in the stance that it currently is in. With the proper community in place, with putting the right resources within our community, with providing the right help, and also the proper training for people that are grassroots on the ground to be able to build and reimagining what the safety looks like within our community is much needed, and it can be done by community. We're proving that we can do that, and it can be done.
All right. Thank you very much. On to Zainab for the next question.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. The next question is, do you support a rent control policy, and what are the details you want to see implemented? The first person that's answering that is Kaji Yusuf. I cannot hear. You're muted.
Thank you so much, Zainab, for that question. Thank you. Yes, rent. I support rent control because, you know, financially, it saves the tenants over the year. Some rental properties can increase up to 10%, and this can make it very difficult for many of, especially new immigrants and communities that are calling this part of Ward 9 home very expensive. Their income is not even going higher. So if the rent is high and you have an income that has stagnated basically, and it's, you know, it's difficult. I spoke to a mother of 7 children recently. Her name is Zainab Mohammed, right here at Ward 9, and she told me she pays $2,800 in rent. You know, her husband, yes, is a truck driver. He makes about 12, 13, 1,400, and it can be very difficult for many of our community, not only the immigrants, but everyone that calls this part of Minneapolis home as well. Rent can be an issue, and you know, rent control can really help provide a better financial stability for the tenants. They can also better plan for the future. You know, if they know the rent is not too high, also they can be able, and with also that's more important, is because rents are capped, tenants are much more inclined to stay in the property for a long time. So even the property owners can benefit when they know that the rents are not high, the tenants are staying for longer, you know, and this, you know, it really can create a good situation for them as well. and it's very important that we look at this issue, knowing that I dealt with this problem when I moved here, like I said, 22 years ago. I lived with 7 other people. This is how we were able to pay rents. So for me, I am a big supporter of rent control, and it's something that we should advocate for here in Minneapolis.
Awesome, thank you. And then Mickey, you're next.
Thank you. This is a very complex question, and I would encourage people to go to my website, weneedmore.org, for a more detailed explanation of exactly why rent control as a government policy has almost always been an abysmal failure. 90% of economists agree rent control simply doesn't work. It leads to less affordable housing, and the loopholes and disincentives that are buried and inherent within policies like that do a disservice and are truly counterproductive. For decades now, Minneapolis has been plagued by a lack of affordable housing. One of the biggest reasons why this problem persists is because we have never properly addressed our home ownership equity gap. This is how you address the affordable housing issue, by properly transitioning our residents into home ownership so that we don't have this huge priority on rental. In the last 7 years, 90% of new development in Minneapolis has been rental housing. And there's a very specific reason for that. And it's not because the priorities and needs of our citizens and our residents here in Minneapolis have been taken into account. It's because they are catering to big development. What we need to do is put the focus back on the residents and what they need the most, improving and increasing our supply by mandating developers have an offsetting affordable housing opportunity. Every time there's a new development, there are also affordable housing opportunities made available for people. As your city council member, I would work to implement incentives to make home ownership much more accessible for our most underserved communities, people of color, Hispanic communities, immigrant communities, indigenous communities, the working poor. We need to partner with existing agencies and organizations to implement intelligent strategies that we can live.
Your time up.
Thank you.
Sorry. We do have a closing statement, so Carmen, you're next.
Thank you again. Yep, thank you again. And so as Mickey, I guess I can complete your sentence because we do have some similar ideas around this thing right here. But first, before I do that, I do want to talk about moving the conversation from rent control to stabilization of rent. But that is very much so different. As you heard me being able to have the thread all throughout my conversation, whether I can complete my thought or not, one thing that I'm big on is breaking and be able to attack this monster called poverty. In order to attack this monster called poverty, those that are interested and those that can, who desire to own homes within our neighborhood right now simply may not be able to do so because we have become the ward of gentrification. And so the affordability for houses is out of the realm of most people's lens. And so that's why we see a huge despair and a huge outpour to moving further out. As we go back to rent control or rent stabilization of rent, there has to be a conversation around what is making rent unstable. And it's all cyclical to each other. How come the affordable housing, the rent control, whatever name you want to put on it, is all connected to the lack of resources that rest here in Ward 9. It is appalled that many people have to work countless jobs, multiple jobs that they're recording or not, that's reportable in order to be able to afford rent in our area. The multi-generations that have to live together in order to afford rent in our area. Y'all, we're not New York City. We're not Chicago. We're talking about the Ward 9 area. And there is definitely, we have to speak to a predatory behavior that is happening within by big developers that come in with high level rent and then push in those that want to live here and call this place home out. Another part of that as well that we must look at is the opportunity for one to break generational poverty through home ownership, through being able to create spaces for generational wealth. So we don't have to do it either or, it really can be a both and. But again, good jobs, being able to break that evil thing called poverty and being able to give resources that people can have the opportunity to own or at least afford rent.
I have to cut you off. I'm sorry. See you. Jason Chavez, you're up next.
Thank you for that question. It's really important. I am 100% in support of rent control. I think that's what we need to do in order to move forward. Before I begin, though, I want to thank the United for Rent Control campaign that has been working really, really hard to make sure that this is even a conversation today. They've been putting a lot of effort to ensure that we do not leave this behind, because we know that rent control is not going to solve everything, but it is going to be the beginning of something to ensure our communities can actually pay rent and that they don't have to have increasing rents every single year. In the question, you asked a specific part of it. Part of the United for Rent Control movement talks about that you need universal rent control that limits annual increases to the cost of living at 3%, right? That's one thing that I really, really, truly support. And not only do I support, it's work that I'm doing right now. Like I mentioned earlier, I work at the state capitol and I work on a lot of legislation. And right now I'm working with our state senator, Omar Fateh, on ending preemption on rent control so that other cities, not just Minneapolis, can actually work on rent control, because we know that it works and we know that our communities need it now. I personally been homeless with my family and know the feeling of being left behind. And I know a lot of my family members and people here in Ward 9 do not need increasing rent that is continuing to price them out of our neighborhoods, our ward, and moving them somewhere else. So yes, I am supportive of it. I think we need more than just rent control, though. We need a full and complete, robust renters bill of rights that's actually going to keep our community safe and at home. We need that tenant opportunity to purchase. We need funding for that right to counsel, so when people do get evicted, they actually have that right to representation. We also need to make sure that when we do have renters here, that they have access to safe housing, which means that our homes need to have sprinklers, because we know sprinklers save lives and fires kill people. So yes, I am 100% in support of rent control. I think we need to go beyond that, though, making sure that everybody has that right to live. And I hope there's some question on housing, because I would love to go more in depth on this. But yes, that's me.
Awesome. And then Devin is going to ask our next question.
All right, excellent. We have an environmental question. So the East Phillips neighborhood is one of the most polluted areas in the entire state of Minnesota, which increases health disparities within BIPOC communities. Do you support the East Phillips urban farm? The first person to answer this question is Mickey Moore.
Okay, thank you. I'm so glad you asked about this, because the East Phillips Urban Farm is one of my favorite projects. It's a great example of a few different things. One, the community coming together to create a great idea that's environmentally friendly, that addresses multiple needs. They have an affordable housing component in the urban farm. They have a renewable energy component because they're using solar. They have a partnership with the University of Minnesota component. They address so many different issues. It's just a very beautiful plan. It's also an example of how the city is so disconnected from our community. And the city has their own ideas and for some reason wants to fight against great ideas like the East Phillips Initiative. I have been, since last summer, I've been putting pressure on the city council to change their mind on the East Phillips Urban Initiative. And just recently we had some good news in that they're voting to pause the Public Works project. And it might mean that they're going to change their mind. Hopefully it puts off the city Public Works project. And this is just a recent thing. This just happened this week. Hopefully it means that they're going to put off the Public Works project in favor of taking up the East Phillips initiative and doing that instead. But it's a fantastic example that could be repeated in other places around the city. Ward 9 is a green zone. It's one of the most heavily polluted areas of our city, and it deserves to be treated with a separate kind of respect for our historical injustice, environmentally speaking. And environmental justice is becoming a brand new idea that a lot of people haven't taken as seriously as they should, but it'll be a top priority when I'm a city council person.
Excellent, thank you very much. The next person to answer the question is Carmen Means.
Yes, the roof depot on the East Phillips Urban Farm and different things that we see that's happening right now. I think that we have to also look at this from a symbolism point. The reason why I say that is Public Works wants to come in and then give the community a community space. This is the way that, unfortunately, that our city has worked countless times. come in and then give the community a space. Instead of the community being at the forefront, at the grassroots part, and being able to tell the city, this is what we need to create our own space. I am a firm believer, I am an advocate. One of the programs in which I have the pleasure of overseeing is urban farming. Urban farming is having accessibility to good food, having accessibility to food that is organic food, and not only that, the healing agents that happen once the community be able to come into an urban setting to build their own food. Is beautiful. It's healing within ourselves. And if there's anything that we need now, not on some utopia type of things, as I look down my window, I can see the ashes of the aftermath. We need to be as many places as we could be able to build our own as possible. How are we able to become self-sufficient? How are we able to have access to things that literally other communities do not have to ask, beg, or plead for? So I definitely support the urban farm. I definitely support exactly where it is at, being so close to Little Earth that really has suffered greatly during this time from asthma, from lead and water, different things that they have had to breathe in, not even knowing the connectivity between the pollution that has happened within our city. Once again, the marginalized had to pay the buck for what rich folks have done to our community. So yes, I am definitely in favor of that. I love to see it being done by the community, for the community, and with the community. And I believe that within itself, creating this space will not only physically within our health and body give us something healing, but also what happens connectivity when this is created for the community.
Thank you. And the next person is Jason Chavez.
Thanks, Devin. Yeah, I 100% support it. I want to share a little bit of story about my own life. Like I said, I was born and raised in the East Phillips neighborhood. So growing up, my family and I used to plant vegetables, fruits, and we had this cute little apple tree in our backyard that we would eat little apples from, the size of my hand. And we would always eat from it because, you know, it saved money and it was like economically safe and friendly for the environment. But I talk about this because after a couple of years of eating from our own backyard and playing in our own soil, the government came and dropped mail on our door telling us that the soil we've been eating from was contaminated and was not safe, that we were putting things that will be killing our bodies. And you know what they did? They told us in English, a language that my parents cannot read, cannot understand, and definitely me as a young age could not even translate. So we didn't even know this was happening. So I talk about that because this is what the East Phillips neighborhood is. It has high asthma and cancer rates, and we are not doing a lot or nearly enough to make sure that our communities are being taken care of. Little Earth has to breathe in air that is toxic and is killing a lot of community members. And if that was done in a different city, we would have been taking action now, but we're not. So I 100% support it. I'm a council member on the Southside Green Zone Council, and we've been trying to force the city council to take action on this for a long time. And it's unfortunate that the city council created these green zones to actually listen to community that is being led by community, that is being at the forefront of community, but isn't even listening to us. They aren't listening to the people that are being affected, that are breathing this air that is killing us. And that needs to stop. So I 100% support the East Phillips Indoor Urban Farm project. I think we need to go beyond that and making sure that we actually kick out the pollutants in our neighborhood. But yes, I agree with that. I think it's a good start, and we should always be listening to the people on the ground that are leading the work and do right by them.
All right, thank you very much. And then Haji, you are the last person to answer the question.
Thank you very much, Devin, for that. First, I want to very clear. There is two things that are threats to Black, Brown, and Indigenous people, and that is our criminal justice system and our environment. These are the biggest threats to our children and the generation of many children that call Ward 9 home moving forward. With that said, I visited the East Phillips Urban Farm, and I have a plan. I thought about it. What can I do? What is my role in this? How can I help with this? And immediately I've reached out. I've come up with a plan. I've reached out to someone working with the Michigan Center for Freshwater Innovation. Before that, as I'm talking to him right now, and he's walking me through this idea of what we can do with East Phillips Urban Farm. Then after, I plan to reach out to all stakeholders and share this future plan with them. For me, I will just talk about the most important things that we are working on this plan. One, a win-win collaboration of community center and a water utility. Urban Farm could be a community center, a local establishment, or a small business, inclusive, farmers market during the weekend, job for youth during summer, water facility infrastructure underground, safer and more secure water supply, training and recruitment center for the water utility, in turn position for vocational training, also including K-12 educational facility focused on the water and carbon cycles, meaning the water system and the plant growth. This is something that after I visited this location, after I saw and I heard what I heard, and let me tell you, not everyone in Ward 9 is aware of East Phillips Urban Farm, but I ask all of you to go and visit and have a tour and listen for yourself what our community has been going through for the last hundreds of years. So with that said, I have put a plan in motion that can be collaborative, that we collectively can come with a solution, and I plan to share that plan.
Appreciate it. Thank you. All right, on to Zainab for the next question.
Awesome. I think all of you guys are going to love this question because you all got cut off at one point. And it's affordable housing again. How do you plan on addressing the housing crisis in Ward 9?
Are you talking to me now?
Sorry, the first person that's going to answer is Carmen Means.
Thank you again. First, we want to, as we're talking about affordable housing, that is a tricky word, not because I don't believe that it can be done, is because we right now have, I believe the last time I checked, over 10,000 people on the waiting list for affordable housing. And what does that mean? What's affordable to one may not be affordable to the other. So I think that now is, again, the time that we can go back to rent control, the stabilization of rent, that we really be able to acknowledge that we have continuously perpetrated and created things that have not been able to help the masses, that only has further perpetrated and made, it's almost like I keep them sick so that they will always need a position type of situation. However, we are in this place that we, outside of my window, I can see people constantly that are experiencing homelessness. And so with that, with having affordable housing, that is one of the many ways that we could be able to give something that we are once again begging for, that should have already been offered as a way of living, as being a human. It's a human right, and that is having housing. But because we are in a marginalized community, that our economics does not match what it costs to live here, we do experience things such as homelessness on a larger scale. So having programs such as PPO that plans to stay public, having programs, and then also been able to partner with the different developers that do come in, but also being able to give a longevity of plan that goes right back around to what I call what that was cyclical, being able to go right back around so that we do not have what I call the special ed syndrome, that the goal originally is to keep them in it so that we can make more money from them. Sickness and poverty and different things of that nature is a money maker. So after affordable housing, what does it look like to move from affordable housing to being a wraparound service, to build services for people to become homeowners? What does it look like, again, to break the generational poverty so that we will not have to continue in a space that these things are constantly needed in a more diasporic way, the increase of it. So again, a holistic view that's not just putting Band-Aids on, the creation of, to make sure people are not experiencing homelessness, and making sure that we are doing it culturally, catering to communities.
I have to cut you off. I'm sorry. Jason Chavez, you're next.
Thank you for that question. So it was, how do you plan on addressing housing crisis in Ward 9? So I think there needs to be a lot done here in Ward 9 to make sure we're taking care of all our community members. The first thing I want to acknowledge is that we have a lot of people that are unhoused. A lot of our community members are not being taken care of, and people in city council, people in government are not doing enough to make sure we're fighting for people that are unhoused and forced to live outside in tents. So we need to make sure we're decriminalizing homelessness, because that is currently criminalized, and we have MPD working to kick people out of our parks and bulldozing their tents, and that needs to stop. But in order to address the housing crisis in the city of Minneapolis, we need a renter's bill of rights. I talked about that earlier. We need to make sure that we do pass rent control, which is stuff I'm working on at the legislature. We need to make sure we work on the tenant opportunity to purchase, to make sure that people that are being kicked out actually have the ability to buy their own home, or have nonprofits have them help them keep their homes. Right now in Powderhorn Park, we have 13 Latinx families that are being forced out because a mental health institute tried to come in and force them out their own homes. We worked since January to make sure that didn't happen, and it bought us times, but it still hasn't been enough to make sure that they can keep that place affordable. That place is affordable and should always be kept affordable, and that's something we need to continue to be fighting for. We also need to make sure that affordable housing is tied to a whole bunch of different things. It should not be tied to AMI. area median income. That is not a good indicator of how to make sure affordable housing is actually affordable. We need housing that is public. We need to expand our public housing system here in the city of Minneapolis and make sure that everybody has access, not access, everyone has a home because that's what people deserve. And then obviously aside from that, making sure that people that are getting evicted have that right to counsel, have that right to representation, making sure that when people do have housing, that it's actually safe. I talked about it earlier, making sure that our buildings have sprinklers to prevent those fires. And yeah, I would just make sure that we do what we need to be doing, especially with housing first initiatives to bring people into homes that are actually affordable.
Awesome. Haji, you're next.
I know you and I are fasting, so we're gonna pull this through. Growing up, I used to listen to a song by Phil Collins, and it went something like "Think Twice." It's another day for you and me in paradise. I want to talk about the unhoused first, because they are the most vulnerable in our community in Ward 9, and we have empathy for them, and we must be able to support them because they are us. They are our fathers, they are our sisters, they are our mothers, they can be our daughters, they can be our children. It's us. We can't leave them out. They are part collectively of us. I want to be clear. What I want to do for the unhoused is first, we need a community voice to drive this change and the right leadership to affect that change. I will use my vote for more supportive services, temporary and long-term housing as needed. I'll use my vote to keep away Minneapolis Police Department or any other law enforcement agency until we find housing for the unhoused. I also plan to support East Depot as a homeless shelter. With that said, now let me go back to affordable housing. Property taxes, rent, and mortgage payments shouldn't break our budget in Ward 9. Ward 9 residents deserve housing costs that are sustainable based on their income. We must expand home ownership as a viable option for all Ward 9 residents by leveraging creative financing by establishing housing trust fund. I will lead Ward 9 toward a just cause eviction policy, rent stabilization, and expand weatherization requirements for rentals, especially now during the time of the coronavirus pandemic. All residents should have access to sustainable, access to safe housing and livable wages and home ownership. This is what we need to look for. We need to make sure that residents in Ward 9, our community, have access.
I'm sorry, I appreciate you though. Mickey, you're the last person to enter.
Thanks. We need an all hands on deck approach. This is a problem that has plagued our city for decades. We need to initiate all of the intelligence strategies that there are available to us. The solutions are there. We just don't have the leadership and the priority structure within our city government to implement these solutions. We need new housing developments. And I mean, like the ones in Ward 9 along 24th Street and along 4th Avenue, right across from Hosmer Library, where there are great housing developments that provide people a chance to buy and own a home. We need programs for low and no down payment opportunities for people that need to get into a home ownership. We need to provide incentives for developers to produce these supplies. We need to rezone our city. It's full of gigantic single family homes, most of them about 100 years old. We need to rezone and allow those giant single family homes to become multiple occupancy opportunities for people. We need innovative concepts like modular homes or tiny homes or whatever is the newest smart idea. We need to grow and stretch our government assistance programs, which can be supplemented by federal, state, county, city resources and nonprofits. And there are a lot of opportunities to create more government assistance and public housing options. We need to take advantage of the many abandoned and unused or severely underused giant buildings that exist around Minneapolis. There's no reason why we can't invest in those opportunities to create more housing. It's something we used to do when we closed schools. We turned them into condos right away. There's no questions asked. This is back in the 70s. We need better, smarter ideas like that, and we need to bring them all to the table. We can't just piecemeal our way out of this thing. We need to bring all the smart ideas we have and make them all available as soon as possible.
Thank you, Devin.
All right, thanks everyone. We are on to our last question. And the question is, do you believe that the 38th and Chicago intersection should be opened up to automobile traffic before the core demands of the No Justice, No Streets movement are met? Why or why not? And so Jason Chavez, you are first.
Yeah, so that wasn't my answer. I intend to work with the people at George Floyd Square to help meet the demands and help work alongside them once I get to the city council, and we'll be doing that right now. I'm currently working on a qualified immunity bill right now to help end qualified immunity for police officers at the Capitol. I do that with Representative John Thompson, who I work for, and I've been doing that work alongside CARE, who's one of the leaders and one of the partners at the state Capitol that we're working with to make sure that we do that, because that should be a priority. I also want to make sure that when we get to City Hall, we are actually fighting for people at GFS, making sure that we bring funding to help the small businesses at George Floyd Square, but also help bring funding to George Floyd Square to ensure we're creating jobs for the youth and creating investments to people there. That place holds a lot of trauma, holds a lot of pain, but it's also a place that holds a lot of happiness, a lot of community programming that just needs people that are willing to fight alongside them and do the work alongside them. So yes, I'm going to be fighting to make sure we meet those demands. I'm already doing part of that work right now as my job at the Capitol, and we'll continue to be doing that work. Yeah, I hope that answered the question.
Excellent, thank you. Haji, you're next.
Thank you, Devin. George Floyd Square is a place of hope. It's a place that we can share that space for the future generation and tell them what happened as is, exactly what you saw. Trust your eyes. And I want to say, first, speak of Gianni Floyd. George Floyd's daughter said, my dad will change the world. For the past 1 year, the whole world has been talking about George Floyd Square. And we cannot forget him as well. And also, forget the tragedy that happened in our city right here in Minneapolis. We need to collectively, as a community, the family of George Floyd and the city come together to preserve, protect, and honor the memory of George Floyd. With that few minutes left for me, I want to add on. I did take my 7-year-old son and my daughter, who's 5. And my son asked me, why did the police kill George Floyd? And this is a question my son asks every police officers he encounters, even National Guard, because he doesn't know the difference between a National Guard and a police. He just sees men and women carrying arms openly and with military uniforms. So this is a place I felt safe to bring them to explain to my son why they killed George Floyd. Because there were many other children there, parents that came to this location with their children, to explain. It's easier for us to talk to our children at this location than anywhere else. When we see other parents with other children, then we can be able to tell them the story of what exactly happened. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And then Carmen.
As you all know, that I work very close with George, with what we call GFS Square, with the square. We don't say GFS Square, we call it the square. And one of the things this question is constantly asked, what do I think as the executive director of Can Do, and what do I think individually as Carmen? What I always try to diverse back to is this right here. Why was the 24 demands even made? And not to discount, but because literally the 24 demands was made because it was a plea, and a plea that the city needs to do, the mayor needs to withstand, and resources that should have already been given to this community. The 3 community members that really was the ones to author this were put into a place that literally to make the demands, so you can know some historical context, to make the demands or they're gonna open the street. With that, we should have never as a community been put in a place that we had to beg for things that were already that should have already been given to our communities. The 24 demands are low-hanging fruit. They're not asking for the moons or the stars. They're simply asking, can we have resources inside of our community that we know that our community needs in order for justice not to be symbolism, but justice to be felt through the asking for the 38th Street businesses to be properly compensated for, that they want to asking for the nonprofit orgs that are on that block to have money to be able to continue to the work, to asking that there will be a recast money that will be advocated to do healing work, to asking that Agape, which has been our security during this time, that they'll be properly housed. So these right here, once again, is when the city, when the community has to do the work of the city in demanding something that the city should have already been given. I must be clear, I do stand with the demands. However, I am at a place as well that I want our community to experience safety. I don't believe that the community has been put in a proper place as constantly being underserved and then oftenly put into this place that we have to choose justice versus safety. It's a very unplaced place to be. That is where we are at now, but we do have to be able to be at a space that continues to have the conversation of the demands and what does it take and why does the community have to be put into a place to constantly beg for things that should have already been given to a marginalized community.
All right, thank you very much. And then finally, we have Mickey.
Thanks, Devin. This is an issue that's very close to my heart. It was the killing of George Floyd that motivated me to step up and lend my experience and my leadership to a community that I knew was going to be really broken and disillusioned and frustrated by what happened. It's not the first time that it's happened. We probably shouldn't expect that it will be the last time, because we have a historical problem with this issue that likely isn't going to be solved overnight or in a short period of time. However, the residents of the 38th and Chicago area, the businesses around George Floyd Square, deserve better. They are being completely, it's been catastrophic what has happened to the residents and the business owners of that area. And we have to do something that we can do now for them. We should be working on these demands. There are a lot of demands contained within this list that are no-brainers that our city ought to have done a long time ago. But because of the way our city operates, we have to understand that these things take time. They're not going to be done by some kind of executive order tomorrow morning. And in the meantime, we have to be able to provide immediate safety, security, and safe space for our businesses and residents to live their American dream. We've pulled the American dream out from under their feet, and it's completely unfair to them. Now, I want to close by saying this. The opportunity exists for our city, for our state, to create the greatest memorial we have ever put together. A memorial of positivity, a memorial of remembrance, a beautiful, safe, secure, comfortable environment where events can be held, where people can gather and think about not just the life of George Floyd, but the incredible social justice movement that his tragic murder helped inspire. That's what we can focus on, and that's what we can create as a city and as a state that will really change the nature of this discussion on the ground.
Thank you. All right, and on to Zainab to lead you with your closing statements.
Awesome. Thank you guys all for joining us tonight and taking a time out of your night. We know it was a quick turnaround. And thank you to everybody who's watching. Thank you so much, Devin, for putting this together. I know it takes a lot of work, so we really appreciate you and your work. You will each have 2 minutes to do your closing statements. And the first person that's going to do their closing statement is Haji Yusuf. So what do you want people to know about you and during this campaign?
Thank you, Zainab. Well, like I said, I'm a father of 4, 1 girl and 3 boys. I want them to grow in a place where they feel they're home, they're welcomed, and they can grow to be like any other children, a safe place for them to call home. Second, which is more again important, and I want to talk to the people who are watching and listening. Yes, you and I have the chance now to bring new proven, progressive, bold solutions in our community and to make our community safe, business friendly, and welcoming. This is something that we can all collectively. No one is an island. We have to do this together as the residents, as neighbors, as friends. We are this one beautiful fabric that makes Ward 9. And the only way we can deal with some of the issues that are pressing right now for all of us is to step back, let cooler heads prevail. Let's rally together and deal with things that are going to have an effect into the future and the generation of our children moving forward. My name is Haji Yusuf. Call me, let's talk. I want to share something with you guys. I think it's very important that I share my phone number. I don't know if you guys can read it. 612-352-0918. Reach out to me. I would like to hear more. I would like to talk to you. I would like to create that conversation one-on-one. I would love, after COVID pandemic and restriction is over, one of these Sundays, I would like to come to your neighborhood and watch Minnesota Vikings on a Sunday, or even just bike ride or have fun. Or maybe I can welcome you to Lake Street and have sambusa with me, or maybe rice and goat meat, something you can try. I'm sure you will like it. This also helps our business grow as well. Or maybe Jason and I and many of our friends can take you to our local Mexican restaurant right here on Lake Street, and we can have a nice dinner and conversation. We're not enemies of each other. We are all in this, and each one of these individual is here for a reason, and I respect that, and I love that. And that's what this community is all about. I'm not here to compete with anyone, and I'm sure so is everybody else. We care. That's why we're running. Running is not an easy decision. It's a big decision. That's why we collectively are trying to solve some of the pressing issues. Our disagreement is not based on hate or pushing each other away or not wanting to know each other.
Time's up. I apologize, but thank you so much for sharing and for joining us tonight. Mickey, you're next.
Thanks so much for having this event. And, I've had an opportunity to meet a lot of people for the last few months, and especially in the last few days while we've been out trying to register people for the caucus and so forth. And some of the things that I'm hearing about are really the kind of the core issues that we've been talking about for so long. Public safety and the rise in crime, our business and economic development issues, our business corridors on Lake Street and our busy streets, and the lack of proper representation that our residents feel like they've been getting from our city and elected leaders. And that's something I want to talk just for a moment about. A lot of our problems are solvable. It's not a lack of solutions that we're suffering from. It's really just a lack of good leadership. And that's one of the reasons why I'm running. I've been a professional for a long, long time. I've had businesses that have been successful in this neighborhood, in this community for over 2 decades. Putting people to work, creating economic opportunities is something I've been doing for a long time now. And it's something I want to continue to do so that we can pass on these opportunities to everybody, because economic development is really at the heart of solving a lot of these other issues. I'm running to represent the 9th Ward on the Minneapolis City Council because I believe more than ever, right now, in the situation that our city and our ward is in, we need attentive, responsive, experienced professional leaders with a long track record of turning significant obstacles into real accomplishments. I'm that sort of leader. I know this community. I love this community. I'll work hard for this community. If I'm elected to represent the 9th Ward, I'll partner with every resident and business owner to make sure we all achieve the American dream. So I urge you to join me in working together, make the 9th Ward and our city safer, stronger, more prosperous, more inclusive, more just, more peaceful for everyone. And you can join us by going to our website, weneedmore.org. You can find all our information right there. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much. And Carmen, you're next.
Again, thank you all for having this opportunity in order to share this and be in this forum. One thing that I know for sure is that last Tuesday, when the verdict was given for Derek Chauvin, when we heard the guilty verdict, a lot of people, there was a debate and there was really a conversation is that justice? And what I now realize is that is seed in the ground, and that is very symbolic to what we need now in our community and what we have been seeing over the last few months It's almost been a year. We're going upon a year in which George Floyd was murdered on 38th Street. We need seeds in the ground. What I commit to as being your city council person, city councilwoman, is being a person that understands the power of the seed that's in the ground. We are in the most pivotal place that we've ever been in this ward. We have, I believe, the largest candidacy, and it's sad that we have had to have a murder to inspire certain folks to step up. And so with that, as we begin to go and we go on, I know that right now, I know the power of business owners and small businesses. I'm in the process now. We have started a business coalition of those that were forgotten about on 38th Street. Lake Street is a place that we know that have gotten some attention, not all resources, and not all attention means resources, but there are other places within our cities that have been forgotten about. We're talking about justice on every area, from environmental justice, everything at the end, every thing that we've talked about, the people that has to pay the ticket for this price has been us that are a marginalized community. My goal is not to just show up as the teacher, but also show up as a student. I want to be able to be diverse in views, to be able to commune with people, and to understand the power of community. We have seen an uprise before the uprise and after the uprise. What do I mean? The uprise is not just representing the burning down or the boycott or the protest of buildings. The uprise happened when community was stepping up and meeting the needs of community. I believe the brilliance is definitely inside community, and we need the proper leadership that is not intimidated, the proper leadership that understands, that can listen, the proper leadership that knows how to evolve to say I was wrong when I did X, Y, and Z, but the proper leadership that knows how to bring us from a place of putting bandages on gunshot wounds, literally and figuratively, but being a place that represents wholeness, that we look at these things, not separation, but everything is cyclical, the way that it connects. Housing, economics, jobs, all of those things are connected. They cannot be dealt with individually. They're not compartmentalized. So what does leadership look like to step up and bring these things to full circle so that we are on wraparound services, not just for Ward 9, but for the city?
I tried to let you go for a while. I tried at least at the end to let everyone go for a while, you know? But thank you so much for sharing. And Jason, you're our last person to share.
Yeah, no, thank you. So I just want to thank everyone here for hosting this event and for tuning in tonight. I'm just running because as someone that was born and raised in the East Hills neighborhood, I know and have lived through the disparities that Southsiders, especially people in the 9th Ward, have faced, and will fight every single day to make sure that no one else has to go through that. I'm running because I believe that our community should be at the center of everything that we do. This is specifically why our campaign is a community-led and community-centered campaign. And it's because that is what our vision is. And that's what we really, really want to be pushing for. We want to make sure that our most vulnerable communities are being heard and are at the center of everything that we do. I know that together we will fight for that system of public safety that will keep everyone safe, because to be honest, the Minneapolis Police Department does not do that and will not ever do that. We need to fight beyond the $15 minimum wage, because people like my mom and dad should not have to work more than 3 jobs each just so they can make sure that they can live. We need to make sure that we are fighting to house every single person in our ward, every single person in Minneapolis. And we can do that through basic things like a renter's bill of rights and making sure that housing is truly a human right. I want to make sure that we're fighting for clean air, clean water, and clean soil, and that people in the East Phillips neighborhood do not have to continue breathing in those toxins that are killing our community members. Again, my name is Jason Chavez Cruz. My pronouns are he, him, his. I'm an organizer, a renter, a policy worker, the proud son of 2 Mexican immigrant parents, and would be the first ever LGBTQ Latino elected to the Minneapolis City Council.
Thank you for sharing. And that's all for tonight. I'll let Devin close it up.
All right, thanks, Zainab, and thanks again to all the candidates. We know how valuable your time is, and thanks to all of the people who are watching. Again, last call, caucus.dfl.org. You have until midnight tomorrow, Friday, April 30th, to register. It's very easy. You fill out the form, click yes if you want to be a delegate. Becoming a delegate means you're actually able to vote on the endorsement when it comes up in June. And also, too, if you look at our YouTube page, we have links to other candidate forums we've done in other wards, and including our mayoral forum we did last week. And in addition to that, we have a video of all of the at-large candidates, the candidates that are running citywide. So that includes Park Board, Board of Estimate, and Mayor. Also, too, just wanted to let you know, next in mid-May, there will be a forum put on by Senate District 61 for park board candidates. And then we'll continue to put on more of these ward forums as time goes on. But again, thanks everyone. Go out and enjoy the lights and the sun. Enjoy your iftar and keep calling those delegates. So thanks everyone. Have a good